Hi, I'm Alice. Welcome to Alice April Academy Online. In this lesson, we're gonna learn the next scale, the next major scale in a chromatic scale after C major, and that would be C sharp or D flat. Let's take a quick look how it works. First of all, take a look at this keyboard. On the bottom, you see all the keys starting with C, and then you also see your black keys, and the black keys have two names. When you go up the scale, they turn into sharps. When you go down the scale, they turn into flats. I was always confused about how the formula works. All the videos that I would find online, they were usually about basic keys that are really easy to build from your regular formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And I wanted to show you guys the scales that got me confused at some point. And I wanted to make sure that you get every single scale in a chromatic order, which means you go from the key of C to C sharp or D flat, and then to D, and then to D sharp, E flat, and so on and so forth. This is a really important little lesson because once you can do one scale, then you can do the rest of them. You just need to understand how it works and how to write it down for yourself. And obviously you don't need to watch me to write down every single scale for yourself. But in case you're confused, I'm going to do all of them just so you can easily find how it works if in case you do get frustrated. So let's get right to it. First thing we're going to do, we're going to write down our C scale. C, then D, E, F, G, A, B, and back to C. All right. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to write down our degrees of the scale. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's an octave. Oops. The next thing we're going to do is write down our formula for a major scale, and that's our whole steps and half steps. So here's supposed to be whole step, then half step, then whole step, whole step, whole step, and a half step. All right, the next thing we're gonna do is, obviously we already did C, so we're gonna do C sharp this time, all right? Between C sharp and D, there has to be a whole step according to our formula. Now let's take a look at the keyboard. So between C sharp and the next key, D, obviously we don't have a whole step, we have a half step, right? Just a half step. Whole step would be 2 halves. So we need to turn this D into a D sharp. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's go ahead and turn our D into a D sharp. Now this here, whole step, is accurate because again, from C sharp to D sharp, half step, 2 half steps equals a whole step. Next up, we have from D sharp to E supposed to be another whole step. But if we look at the keyboard, from D sharp to E, again, we have a half step. What are we gonna do? We're gonna use this key here, which is F, right? To make it into a whole. So we're gonna go here and ooh, that's where it gets confusing. Now we can't have E, it has to be F, but F is right here. And that's where usually people stumble. Here's how it works. E actually has another name, and that would be F flat, and F has another name, E sharp. Knowing this information and hopefully understanding this information will help you to build your scale. If you raise C by a half step, it turns into a C sharp. If you lower D by a half step, it turns into a D flat. Same way it works here. If you lower F by a half step, it turns into F flat. If you raise E by a half step, it turns into E sharp. Now let's get back to our scale. Here, it has to be a whole step, right? So E has to become an E sharp. Makes sense? Now, between E sharp and F, there's supposed to be a half step, right? And that's where it gets super confusing. Because E sharp is F, actually. Does that make sense? So now you go, well, okay, what do I do now? It needs to be a half step up. And the only way it can be a half step up is what? If F is going to turn into F sharp. Does that make any sense? Even though it sounds confusing, it is visually very easy to understand. Because if you look from E to F, we have a naturally occurring half step, right? And from F to F sharp, we have a naturally occurring half step. Now that our E here turned into E sharp, and then F turned into F sharp. Really what changed between this naturally occurring half step is we just literally added sharps to them. Okay, so that's another way of looking at it. Next, between F sharp and G, we're supposed to have a whole step, right? And again, very easy when you look at this here, between F sharp and G, there's only a half step. So we gotta jump here to make G into a G sharp. This way we get our whole step. Back here, G is now G sharp. Awesome. Same thing here. Next up, from G to A, we gotta have a whole step. But what do we have? A half step, right? G sharp to A, so we gotta make A into A sharp. Back and modifying that here. From A to B, we gotta have a whole step again. Look down. From A sharp to B is a half step, so we gotta make it into a, ooh, what are we gonna do here? Well, guess what? The same thing we did before with E and F. We're gonna turn our B into a what? C flat, and our C into a B sharp. Again, up the scale turns into a sharp, down the scale turns into a flat. Now, makes perfect sense. From A sharp to B sharp, and we have a half step and a half step. Altogether, a whole step. Back here, and so easy to lose myself filming this way. All right, so we got everything so far is matching up. We have only one interval left from B sharp to C. Now we know again that B sharp is a C, right? Look at here. B sharp is a C. So in order to make it a half step, we have to turn this guy into a C sharp. And from B sharp to C sharp, we have our naturally occurring half step. And there you have it. I'm gonna hold it for just a moment so you can really look at how it works and hopefully understand it really well. Again, this is C sharp major scale. Major formula is whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And now every single note is matching that formula. What is the difference between C sharp major scale and D flat major scale? Well, really nothing, right? Same exact notes. Well, one thing is different though. Look at how many sharps are in C sharp major scale versus how many flats are in D flat major scale. Let me give you the answer. all 7 notes in the key of C sharp are sharp. And in the key of D flat, we only have 5 flats. Now let's review real quick. From D flat to E, as you can see on the keyboard, if it's just E, D flat to E, we have what? A whole and a half step, right? And it has to be a whole step, which means we have to lower E by a half step to get between D flat and E flat, our whole step. Make sense? Next, between E flat and F, we already have our whole step, right? E flat to E, and then E to F. Half, half, all together a whole step. So that matches, which means F doesn't have to be modified. Now from F to G to regular G, we have a whole step, right? Half, half. But it has to be, according to our formula, a half step. So what do we got to do? We got to lower our G to become a G flat, right? Now this is a half step. From G flat to A, right here, it's a whole and a half. To make it just a whole step, we got to lower this A to make it A flat. And now from G flat to A flat, we have half and half. Altogether, a whole step. And this is how it works. From A flat to B flat, we have a whole step. Again, from B flat to C, we also have a whole step, right? Half step, all together a whole step. So C, in our case, again, does not have to get modified. And from C to D, we have a whole step, but it has to be, according to our formula, a half step. So that means that D has to become a flat. And it has to become a flat because we started on D flat, we gotta end on D flat. And there you go, that's how it works. And that is why we have sharps and flats. And there's gonna be another example why, because if you do this formula on other keys, you can get double sharps, and to make it simple, that's where flats got introduced. Now, I hope this helps. And in the next video, I'm gonna show you guys how to actually play it on guitar. Again, all 7 positions. I will also show you how to play it on piano. I will show you basic C major scale real quick on piano and then introduce this guy right here. Also, it's going to be super fun to do all these in the circle of fifth. Again, I would have to introduce circle of fifth so you can understand how it works. Because in the beginning, it might be extremely confusing. And there's different ways that you can learn by the formula, by the circle of fifths. Now, when I was learning theory, I got so confused that I just decided, you know what, I learned some simple chords, I really want to write songs, and I'm gonna come up with some leads and intros just literally by guessing and by just plucking the strings. But if you want to become a professional musician and you didn't get to go to music school or a music college, then what do you know? It's confusing, it's frustrating, you get the books really are designed to teach you to get inspired about songs. So they show you theory in the very sporadic way. So just so you're not bored, so you will not put the book down, that's usually the case. And if they teach you all the theory, then you're probably gonna get bored because you really have to be excited about music excited enough to stick around. And I was excited enough, but not many people want to learn theory. They just want to learn some basic chords to play a few songs and that's it. Now, if you are a musician at heart, then you're gonna want to know everything about music. And that's what I understood, that I want to be able to learn everything about music, but at the same time, I didn't want to lose my mind and I wanted to understand how it works. Everything that came into my life, including teachers that were trying to get through to me, were explaining everything in a very confusing way. And that's why I got so driven and so motivated to make it simple for you, hopefully. So if you have to watch this video a few times, if you have any questions for me, I will be glad to answer, because I don't want you to be confused about music theory. And I absolutely testify that without music theory, you're not going to get very far. You'll be able to play, sure, because you can just put your favorite records on and just improvise. Not everybody is good at it. Okay, so music theory can get you there faster. And I know, because not just I know it because it's my experience, but I also asked multiple professional musicians and musicians that decided to be professionals without even going to music school or college again. So I wanted to stress it, how important it is to really explore music theory, and hopefully these videos can shed some light on how it works. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.